Hello, my name is Michelle Haub, and I'm the Meadowlark Special Programs Leader. Thank you for joining me today for our very first edition of Memory and Engagement Opportunity. We're going to meet weekly to do some new fun engagement and memory things. So the purpose for this opportunity is to engage and attend. When we're in our room, when we're isolated in our apartments or our homes, that opportunity to be able to engage our mind and our attention can sometimes be limited. So I'm hoping that this opportunity will give you some time to do just that. The other thing we're going to do is be thinking and processing. Of course, when I do things, I like to smile, and I often do things that I don't intentionally do that are kind of silly. And so hopefully I will get you to laugh as well. We will also be doing some moving and some breathing exercises. All of these are good for your brain. So we'll begin the day with a walk down memory lane. Wednesday, March the 25th of this year is National Little Red Wagon Day. I know we probably all can think back to the times of those days of carefree living is sitting in a wagon or pulling someone else in a wagon. And so this walk down memory lane today is all about reminiscing. When I think about a little red wagon, I think about the time when I was in grade school and we had a pop-up camper in our yard. And, well, it was parked in the yard, supposed to be there. And some friends were over and they were pulling me in the wagon, and I had my hands, of course, on the side of it, and we were racing around the camper. I don't know why, but we were. And they turned around the camper too quickly, and I got a huge slit on the top of my hand, and I will never forget that. I have that great scar there to bring back those memories of the fun-filled times of riding in the little red wagon. So again, it's just a great time to sit back and think and reminisce. So before we go on to that a little bit more, I'd like to share with you a video about the radio flyer that was first invented in 1917. This is an interview with the grandson of the developer of that wagon. So it'll play right after this advertisement.
The housing bubble burst.
Rise of China and the rise of inequality.
Health is a very big deal.
Taxes are
Front rank issue.
blue-collar jobs were lost.
The radio flyer has been a part of growing up for generations, and now the iconic metal toy is being commemorated in a new picture book. It's called Radio Flyer, 100 Years of America's Little Red Wagon. The author is also Radio Flyer's CEO, Robert Passon. And Robert, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Great to be with you, Becky.
I know 100 years ago, your grandfather immigrated to Chicago from Italy. How did he start this company?
Yeah, he was a cabinet maker, and when he immigrated here, he put that to use right away. And one of the first things he made was a little wooden wagon, and he called it the Liberty Coaster after the statue that welcomed him to America. And then that business continued to grow, and in the late 1920s, he started to mass produce the wagons out of steel, which earned him the nickname Little Ford, because he did for wagons what Ford did for cars. And he named that steel wagon the Radio Flyer. And everyone always asks me, where does the name Radio Flyer come from? And it's because they were the two coolest high-tech inventions at the time, radio and airplanes. So I like to joke, if he were naming it today, he probably would call it the Quantum AI Dronester or something like that, but we're not changing the name.
Even though you've evolved over the years, everybody still knows exactly what this is. What do you think specifically makes the Radio Flyer unique, and why do you think it's stayed popular for so long?
Yeah, I think it's because it's such a basic item. I mean, we get all of these photos and stories from people through the years, and that's one of the things that inspired us to put this book together. And one of the recurring themes in all the stories that people tell us is that their radio flyer was a vehicle of their imagination. It could be anything they imagined it to be, and it could take them anywhere they wanted to go.
Okay, so I thought that was just a very interesting little story. So, what I'd like you to do now is take a few minutes to grab a pen or paper, or simply just to visit with someone that's with you, either quick phone call or just talk with someone else in your apartment or home. I want you to talk about your memory or memories with the radio flyer or with a wagon. Or if you didn't use one of those with your children or as you were growing up, then just take a couple minutes to think of some other types of toys or activities that you enjoyed growing up. Okay, so let's move on. The next thing we're going to do are some breathing exercises. So I want you to make sure that you are sitting with your feet about hip width apart, and we're sitting up nice and tall. So the reason we do some breathing exercises is that we obviously know that we need air to breathe, but it's also important for us to work on breathing as a way of de-stressing and improving our focus and attention. So if we're feeling overwhelmed or we're feeling stressed about some things or maybe even depressed about some things, our breathing pattern and focusing on that breathing pattern can help us to regain that calm and cool demeanor and posture. It's very hard for us to remember things and focus on learning things when we're feeling stressed or anxious, worried, or depressed. So again, this technique is important when you're feeling those things to help you be able to calm yourself into a better phase of being open and receptive to learning and remembering. Okay, so back to this breathing pattern. So we're sitting up nice and tall, and we're going to be focusing on our diaphragmatic breathing. So what I want you to do is just take your hands and place them just below your rib cage. So you can feel the rib cage there if you push in a little bit. You can also take your hands and keep them open so that you're putting your thumbs behind you. That can also help you to ensure that you're really feeling that lower belly expanding as you're breathing in. So we're going to breathe in and focus on that expansion, as I said, through our nose, and then we're going to exhale through our lips to really contract that belly or the abdominal muscles in there to push out all of the breath. So let's begin. We're going to do a 3-to-3 ratio. So we're going to be breathing in through our nose for 3 and out through our mouth for 3. Okay, so here we go. Just join me. Breathing in, out, and in, In, out. Good. And so remembering that we want that breathing to be deep into our diaphragm. We don't want to see a lot of shoulder movement here because that means we're breathing more shallow and it doesn't allow us to really get that good exchange of air and really focus on that good quality breath support. So we'll do just a couple more, and this time what I want you to do is breathe in for 3 and out for 6. Just a nice controlled breathing pattern. So here we go. Breathing in, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Okay, let's do that again. And this time I'm going to go with you and I'll count with it with my fingers instead of my voice. So we're breathing in, 2, 3, out. Very good. And one more. Breathing in, out. Good. Very good. So I want you to think about that throughout your day and find times that you can utilize this breathing technique, again, to help you work on good clean breathing, as well as kind of recentering yourself and helping you to be able to focus your attention. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is some seated or standing exercise. Lots of research tells us that what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And we hear Jeff tell us that a lot, and Kelsey tell us that a lot. So we want to work on that any chance we get. So what we're doing for today, just again to get that heart beating a little bit more and get those muscles moving, we're just going to do a marching and moving our feet and arms together. So again, you can do this seated or standing. So we're just going to march in place. Just do a little bit here. Get those legs moving. And again, your legs are just hip width apart. And you're marching. Get the heart pumping. Get that oxygen flowing to the brain. We can always smile here too. Smiling is always good. Uses more muscles. So keep going with me. Just a little bit more. And next we're going to march with our feet narrow and then wide. Okay, so I know it's hard to see me here like this, but it's a regular march with your feet about hip width apart. And then you're going to step them out wide for a couple or 6, and then come back in for 3 and make it up to 6 here, and then back in narrow and back out wide. Good. Now we're going to take it to another level here, coming back in, and we're going to add jumping jack arms this time. Okay, so this adds a little bit more of that cognitive component. You didn't think I'd let you get off without that. All right, so we've got our feet just nice and narrow, and we've got jumping jack arms. Now we're going to take it out to wide feet. Keep those jumping jack arms going. Wide feet. Good. Now we're going narrow feet for 3. And wide feet for 3. Good job. Don't forget that smile. Back to narrow. And wide. You're doing great. I know you guys think I'm crazy, but that's working the heart. It's working the brain. And see, talking, I missed it. We're back to narrow. And wide. And narrow. And wide. And rest. Very good. So anytime we're doing exercise, we want to, well, not anytime. We often have to focus on our breathing. We have to focus on our steps. and we have to focus on safety. But when we can, we want to try to add in some form of a cognitive task. So that's what I did with changing from narrow to wide and then adding in a jumping jack arm versus a regular arm. So again, research tells us that cognition and muscle movement can both improve when we're doing a cognitive load. So changing up our task, making our brain think while we do muscle movement, is better than just doing one or the other at a time. So, last exercise for today, we're going to do calf raises. Again, I know it's hard to see me here, but you're simply in your normal seated position here, and you're just going to come up on your toes and back down to your heels. So up and down. Let's go ahead and add those arms in with us. So when our come up on our toes, our hands come up. When we go back on our heels, hands go back. So up and down. Just doing some calf raises. Okay, so that's just getting some blood flow, getting those muscles moving. I don't know if you can hear my ankle popping, but every time it goes, there goes an ankle pop. You guys probably have some things creaking and cracking as well. Maybe it's a chair. Maybe it's something else. All right, so you've got this pattern here. Now, to add to our cognitive load, we're going to work on some punches. So we're going to stop with our hands. Just keep those feet moving. Those calf raises up, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel. Good. Now we're going to add some punches in. So punch, 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 punch. Good. Good. So every time you come up on those toes, you make a punch. Good. So this is also working on some good rotation and some cross-body movement. The brain, the muscles like to be challenged with cross-body movement. Very good. So just a couple more here. Good. Don't forget about those calves. Make them burn with those toes. You're coming up on those toes. Good. And rest. All right. So now we've got all that blood flowing to our brain. We're nice and warm, and we are ready to make our brain work some more. So how many of you have had this experience? It's on the tip of my tongue. I know exactly what I want to say. It's just not coming out. It's a very common situation for all of us. No matter what your age is, at some point in time, you're going to experience this phenomenon. So what do you do when it happens? Just a few tips. Stay calm. When we become anxious, it is harder for our brain to focus and come up with what it is that we want. Use gestures. Okay, just like in this picture here, this lady is using a gesture. We all know that she's thinking what she's wondering about. So using gestures, using body language to help you try to come up with the word, but it also helps your listener to try to interpret what it is that you're thinking as well. Describe it. If you can't think of the word, describe it. Tell everything you can about what it is you're thinking of. This can also be called circumlocution. So this is just a fancy word for saying, describe it. Number one best bet when coming up with the word that's at the tip of your tongue. And lastly, keep trying. Don't give up. Don't walk away from it. Just keep trying. You will come up with it, or your listener will come up with it. And even if not, maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to wake up with that word. But it's really important to keep trying. So let's do a word finding exercise. Okay. I want you to think about a few things here. So you can take notes on this if you would like. I think it's a really good thing to practice, and I'm going to have you do some of this later as well. So if you take down some of the descriptions of how we can work on word finding, I think you'll be able to use these words later. So it looks like, Okay, so obviously sensory words. We want to talk about what it looks like. What do I see? What's its appearance? What's its size? What's its shape? All of those things that you think of when you see something. What it sounds like. We always use this when we're playing a charades game. But what do you hear? What does it sound familiar to? What are all of those properties of hearing, or maybe it rhymes with another word that you can use to help you with the sounds like? It feels like. Obviously with objects, it's really easy to come up with description for feels like. It's soft, it's squishy, it's bumpy, it's hard, it's scratchy. All of those types of words that really help your listener to get a picture of what it is that you're describing. And of course, those feels like can also be emotional words too. It feels like sadness. It feels like joy. Those types of things that we don't want to overlook when we think about feels. Smells like. We obviously know what several of those things could be. A food that you're cooking that smells quite pungent, or it smells delicious. What are those properties of smell that can help you to describe what you are thinking? And of course, tastes like. Not everything is going to have that taste or shouldn't have that taste description, but sometimes it's a really important part of helping us to explain what we are thinking. So, pancakes. We're going to practice a little bit. So I want you to look at the list on the left, the looks, sounds, feels, smells, and tastes. How would you describe pancakes? So take a second here and jot down on your paper that we used earlier some of the descriptive words for pancakes, or share with a partner now. Great. So I'll just throw a couple of thoughts out there. So of course we could say looks round, looks yellow. Maybe if you've got blueberries in it, it's round with the polka dots, purple in there. What it sounds like is kind of a hard one for describing pancakes. But you could talk about how when you're cooking the pancakes, how it makes a little crackle. How when you pour in the mixture, that it's making a sound like a water trickling. What it feels like, it feels squishy. It feels warm when it comes off the griddle. What it smells like, delicious. It smells like sweet cakes, and it tastes like sweet cakes. So again, you can use these things as your sensory words. Obviously, if we were going to keep describing pancakes, we could add more things, like it's a breakfast food and I put butter and syrup on it. But that's looking at describing a little bit differently than what we're addressing today when we're really focusing on these sensory words. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute or so to do each of these. So our next one is bed. And I'll give you just a minute to describe a bed based off of our sensory words. Again, write your ideas down, your descriptive words, or share with someone that you have with you. All right, very good. And so here's your next word, shirt. So take a minute to do that one. All right, so now we're moving on to our next one. Wagon. You knew I'd throw that one at ya. All right, so we've had a couple minutes to work on all of those. And so when I think about wagon, based off of our earlier discussion, you might think that I would say feels like could be pain, but also joy. So again, I hope that you're thinking not just with the true sensory feel, but thinking about that sensory of emotional feel as well. And our last one on this slide is going to be tree. So take a minute and describe, using these sensory words on your left, a tree. All right, very good. I think you're getting the hang of this. So let's go ahead and try a couple more. So again, I'm going to put up your cues to help you remember what it is that we're describing, our form of describing through sensory words. And we'll practice just a couple more. So we have sandwich, chair, and sock this time. And you can go ahead and just write those words down. And then I'd like you just to work on describing based off of those sensory words that you see on the left, the looks like, sounds like, feels like, smells like, and tastes like. So we have sandwich, chair, sock, cinnamon, and jumping jack. Again, a little relevance to what we did earlier in our session with our jumping jacks. Okay, so jot down those 5 words. And you can practice using your sensory word descriptors there. So I hope you were able to learn something from today's session. We did several different things, working on some breathing exercises to help us de-stress, working on some exercise to help get that heart rate going, and do some cognitive load work as well as our motor movements. And then practicing some sensory components for words, describing those words. So for your homework, because we always want to have something to look forward to the next time we get together, I want you to think of how you can incorporate. So I want you to think about how you can incorporate homework in your daily world now. It's important to find time each day to attend to a task and think and process. So what's important here is that we make it a priority. Just as we make it a priority to eat and to drink our water every day. One little side note there. Make sure you're drinking water. Grab a nice big cup of water. Keep it wherever you like to spend your day, and make it your goal to get through whatever amount of water you need to for your medical needs. It's really easy in these times of isolation to not be taking care of your body nutritionally wise. And our brain needs water to help us to keep things moving well. Little bit of dehydration. Research shows 2% dehydration in the elderly population can cause cognitive changes. So it's a pretty big change in the brain for just a small decline in dehydration. So make sure you're drinking your water. Back to my original viewpoint here. Find that time also when you're drinking your water, when you're eating your meals, that you're also finding time within that day to attend to something. It could be looking at your mini messenger that you get. It could be looking at your messenger. It could be reading the newspaper. But what you need to do is attend to a task that you have and think about it, process it, maybe set it aside and then try to come back to it and remember what it was that you learned earlier or that you read earlier. I want you to practice your breathing exercises. So again, in through your nose for 3 seconds, out through your mouth for 3 seconds. Okay, making sure that it's a nice, low diaphragmatic breathing opportunity here. Move every day, multiple times a day. Take your walks, you do your calf races that we did, do your marching. Heck, even cleaning is a very good movement activity and can be considered an exercise. So keep moving, keep that blood flowing. Stay connected. Again, in this time of social distancing, physical distancing, it's really easy to become more isolated and to not have those connections with other people. But those are the things that help us to keep moving and to want to make those connections, to keep those connections strong. So write a letter to a family member or a friend. Give them a call. Just pick up the phone. Make sure that you're connecting with somebody at least once a day. Funny story, I had this conversation with my 15-year-old and my 12-year-old today, and they both said, nope. They may have texted a couple people, but they hadn't had any like face-to-face or live voice-to-voice conversations. So I said before they could do anything else, they needed to call someone. So my oldest son, Trey, went to his room, and a couple minutes later, my youngest son, Truman's phone started ringing. Yep, they were talking to each other on the phone. Not exactly what I had in mind, but pretty clever. So call or write someone. All right, so here you go. I promised you, I probably gave you lots of opportunities to laugh. Probably many bloopers could be made from this experience today, but heck, it's our first one and we got to get started somehow. So something to make you laugh. Why? Well, laughing is good for you. It makes you breathe differently. It gets more oxygen to the brain because your breathing is changing. And it's good for the soul. Also, it engages a whole lot more facial muscles when you do this. So, I've got a couple funny bloopers of people with the little red wagon for you.
Get closer.
And again, we've got to get past this video here.
Still works. Still works.
And
I don't need a new one yet.
here we go. All right, so as you can see, every size, every shape, every age can enjoy a little red wagon. So thank you again for joining me for this first edition of memory and exercise opportunities. Hope you have a great week. Bye-bye.